This episode of the podcast is with the robot, Trystan Hart. Trystan is a humble Canadian known for his hard work and his limitless mindset. This dude is a savage, and it was a pleasure to sit down and speak with him about mindset, dirt bikes, life, and everything else. Trystan is 2021, 22, and 23 US Hard Enduro Champion. He also got third in the Hard Enduro World Championship in 2023. He is our 2023 AMA Endurocross Champion. I was fortunate enough to compete in the Hare Scramble series with him in 2017 and 2018 and maybe 2019. Trystan is an incredible rider, a great racer, and a really cool person. He's super unique, and there's lots of juicy nugs in this podcast. I hope you like it. Check it out. And now a quick word from our sponsors that keep the podcast going. Bulletproof Designs is a company that focuses on making the highest quality billet aluminum protective parts for off-road dirt bikes, made right here in the USA. I've been running Bulletproof Designs since 2012, and I've had great luck with all of their products. Their products come with a lifetime warranty, so if you break something, you know they got your back. Bulletproof Designs protective equipment is a must-have if you like to ride gnarly terrain. If you like to mess around and find out, you better put Bulletproof Designs on your bike. Head on over to bulletproofdesigns.com to order parts to keep you riding weekend after weekend. Climb needs no introduction, but here we go anyway. I've been riding Climb gear since 2008. They were one of my first sponsors. Climb works hard to provide the community with high quality, lightweight, and durable motorcycle gear. Their latest addition is the XC Pro line of gear. This is what I run. They have off-road and adventure gear along with a range of other lifestyle products. They support us, so go support them. Do you need a one-stop shop for everything you need to keep you on the trails? Slavens Racing is an online retailer that specializes in selling high-performance off-road products. Slavens is owned and operated by dirt bike enthusiasts, by riders, for the riders. The customer support team over at Slavens has a huge foundation of knowledge to help you dial in your bike and equipment. That means you get the best customer support when you call them with questions. Head on over to slavensracing.com to buy from the experts of off-road. Thanks for sticking with us through these ads. Let's get into the episode. All right, Trystan Hart.
We're live.
I'm here with the man, two-time champ, Canadian robot, Trystan Hart. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Cool to be in New River.
Yeah, 100%. How's your time here in Arizona training with the boys?
It's been pretty good. Can't complain too much. I used to not always like coming here, but I knew it was good for me. But I think that was just before we had like such a good, strong group that always rode together. And now, you know, we're all just here and definitely pushing the limits this year of Rio Verde. We got some absolutely crazy stuff that you saw the other day. And, I mean, the bike work's been insane because, you know, yesterday I bent both sides of my handlebars, lost a grip, still had to get up a hill without the grip. So, might have pushed the limits a little too far, but it's good fun and it's good to know where the limits are.
It seems like all the stuff out there that Taylor and I used to train on is your warm-up loop now. You guys have pushed it past the fun point.
Yeah, now the consequences are quite high, which is, for the average person, maybe they're high. But when you know what you're doing, the consequences, you know, you don't think about them so much just because you're so certain that you can make the line. So it's not even almost a consequence at some point. So that's kind of crazy to think about because I think if one of us would go out there not on a bike or in gear, just on shoes, on a casual day, we'd look at one of the lines we're doing and be like, no way. The fact that we're just there with helmets and gear on and the bikes and we're just in the zone, we don't even, I don't think we fully look at what we're doing. Sometimes we just turn the brain off and go.
Do you think you'd go that hard and go that big if you're out there by yourself or if you were out there with regular people and not other super hard enduro athletes?
No, definitely if I was by myself, I'd stick more to the fundamentals because you just don't want to be in a bad spot or do something too gnarly where you have no one to help you. But usually as long as there's someone there, I don't mind pushing myself. But it's that extra like 1% to do something super gnarly. It's nice to just have someone there doing it with you, just getting your confidence up a little bit. So definitely nice having half the top 10 hard enduro riders in the country here right now. So that's pretty sweet.
Sick. When you're riding with other hard enduro riders, do you find that with these guys, I mean, Ryder, Will, whoever else, do you find that increases your confidence, or do you find that it lowers your confidence when you're riding with them?
For me, it definitely increases my confidence. Always when I'm with the boys, I'm usually smiling, and I'm like the veteran now at this point with these guys, and I'm usually the one steering the ship, and I'm trying to make it as gnarly because I've been to Europe and I kind of have that experience now, and I know where the level needs to be if any of these kids want to go there and, win Erzberg or podium it. And so I just know the level, and I'm trying to constantly push myself and push them at the same time. And sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes you got to hit a line that you're not even 10% sure you're going to get, but most of the time it's going to work out all right, and it's going to open your eyes to, bigger things and things that you didn't think were possible before.
And what's knowing that level in Europe and then applying that to how you practice here in the States? How do you stay committed to a line? Because I know that that's a challenge for me and anybody that rides a dirt bike, especially when it's a big, long, ledgy uphill, and you have to stay committed and stay back and stay focused on your throttle and stay on it. And it's so easy to back out of it. But how do you stay committed, especially after you guys are going up the 1% obstacles where it's like super, super, super gnarly? How do you overcome it when you didn't make it maybe one time before? And how do you stay committed?
For me, when I'm in the zone, it's just almost, there's no doubt that I'm gonna get up. So it's just, if I hit a rock, like when I'm fully in the zone, if I hit a rock and the rear tire slides or anything that happens, if I lose half my momentum, I'm still just so sure I'm going to the top, because when I'm in that zone, I'm just so focused, and it's just not even an option to not get up. So it's kind of a cool zone to get in, because you almost feel invincible, but sometimes it can get the best of you. And then at that point, it can come unraveled, because you're going to go from feeling invincible to, if you don't make it, that can also compound, and the next thing it can get in your head quickly. But for the most part, I can break out of that if I do make a mistake and get back into the zone quickly.
And how did you develop the zone? How did you learn? How did you develop the zone that you get into, and then how did you make that repeatable so that you can drop into the zone when you need to be there?
That's a tough thing. I wish if I knew the answer to that, I would have had a lot better results. Some of those times when I couldn't quite get into it, like for instance, one this last year was Outliers. Pretty sure it was a race. The year before I didn't win it either. 2 years in a row now I've lost it. And the year before, me and Manny had one of the gnarliest battles I think either of us have ever had. It was 3 hours in like 30 degrees Celsius on one of the gnarliest tracks either of us have ever done. And we battled all the way till the last lap. And then one of my friends that I bug now, because he pretty much cost me 10 grand in that race, I give him a hard time, but he fell right in the main line, and I just hit him and came back down. And that was just after I had cleaned a couple gnarly sections and broken away from Manny by a minute. And so I ended up losing that one. And then this year, right off the start, I had a bonehead move, and it instantly just took me out of the zone. And then I made more mistakes, and Ryder was actually telling me just to slow down, because I was, when it's your home country and everyone expects you to win and I expect to win, it's like a lot of pressure almost, but sometimes that'll help you raise your level. But for some reason, I was just in this weird spunk for like 2 laps where I was just riding super bad. And I think I ended up pulling in, and we changed my throttle housing because I had a big crash or something. And then after that, I ended up riding good. I came back from like 8th and still got on the podium. So that was good. But, back to the original question, if I knew how to get in the zone easily and repeatedly, that never would have happened, and I probably would have won that race, in my opinion. So tough thing. But for me, generally speaking, it doesn't matter how nervous I am before the race or what's going on in any aspect of my life. If the craziest thing that happened, a car crash or, anything tragic. As soon as I, the start of the race, I would just enter the zone, and it's almost like nothing else matters, and it's just a really good feeling, I guess. Like before Endurocross especially, the nerves are really high because there's a lot of consequences. There's a lot of other riders. You can't control what they're doing. So for me, that I guess you'd say it gives me anxiety because I'm trying to think about controlling things that are out of my control. And as soon as that gate drops, that all shuts out and I can kind of get into my groove right away.
So you're saying that no matter what's going on in your life, when the green flag flies, you're able to tap in and become the robot?
Yeah. I mean, that's maybe one of my favorite aspects about racing is that it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. When it's go time, and I go into that special, for me, it's really special zone where I can pretty much do what I want on the bike for the most part, which is a cool feeling.
Is that special spot for you, or that special zone, is that a quiet place in a lot of ways? Is it calm? Is it quiet because you're focused on one thing and the external noise of life and everything else, it gets shut out?
Quiet in a way, I guess, but it's also hectic because there's a lot going on. But I guess it just kind of depends on the moment, like where I am at the race. If I get a bad start, then it's a little more hectic than if I got the whole shot and cleaned a section and then got a gap right off the bat. So it kind of just depends on the situation.
And do you use any type of breathing exercises or anything like that along those lines to get into the zone, to calm yourself?
I've talked to a lot of people about this. A lot of people have talked to me about this. Like there's Irene at Red Bull. I talked to her about it. A lot of people have talked to me about this, but for me, it just seems like for me, it's out of my control. It's just gonna happen the way it happens. It seems. I've tried doing breathing or whatever, but a good example was before the 2022 Endurocross Championship when me and Johnny were 1 point apart or something. Whoever won that night, and that week was probably the most nerve-wracking week of my life. I was on Tuesday morning. I think I woke up, and from Tuesday to Saturday, I was just stressing and sweating that whole week, and you can't even control it. People were telling me all these breathing stuff, and I was going into the hotel stairwell trying to do these breathing stuff, and nothing changed it for me. In that point in time, I just had to go through that type of pressure situation, which is it's pretty crazy. I mean, another example too, I was trying to break myself out of that high pressure situation. I was jumping over pylons. Maybe you saw it that night, but I was jumping over pylons and I tripped on one in front of everyone, just honestly goofing around, trying to loosen myself up. Me, Spencer, and my girlfriend that night, we got in the car, blasted tunes, and I was driving, trying to drift around in the Reno, the livestock in the parking lot, just doing donuts with loud music, trying to break myself out. But there was honestly nothing I could do that night to calm myself down. And then it really paid off going through that, because this year I was more of an underdog on Johnny. He had more pressure because he didn't have to win necessarily, where I did have to win. So for me, it was just less pressure, and I was calm that whole night, and it ended up working out pretty good for me this year in the Endurocross. So, it's just, you got to go through tough times sometimes.
Do you think that pressure, that anxiety and that pressure is what opens the door for you to be able to perform at your highest level?
Sometimes, for sure. At TKO 2020, really I'd won the week before, but I felt like there was a lot of pressure that week because I just got on the factory bike pretty much, and I feel like a lot of everyone at KTM, my friends, were kind of expecting me to win, so there was a lot of pressure that weekend, and I beat him at arguably his best track in TKO, and at that point in time, no one had ever beaten him there. So, for instance, the pressure that weekend excelled
What
for
year?
me.
What year was that?
It was 2020.
And that was your first TKO win?
Yeah.
That was a big overtaking.
Yeah, because, at that point, literally, Jarvis, Johnny, Wade, Manny, Mario, I think everyone except maybe Billy had come over and tried to beat Cody, and no one had beaten him at TKO at that point. So it was pretty cool thing to do, I think, because that's kind of Cody's stomping ground the last 15 years or so.
What was it like to beat Cody at that race that year for you?
It was hard to remember now because 4 years ago or so, but I just remember it was a good feeling to do that. But it honestly came pretty easy from what I remember, because I got a gap on the first lap, and then I lost it. He made some good moves and caught back up to me, but then I slowly just pulled away, and I had like a 30-second lead or so by the last lap or so, and I kind of just rode to the finish. That year was a bit easier too, so that might helped me a bit. They rotated the track that year, and we came down the waterfall instead of going up, so that might have helped me a bit, because at that point in my career I still was not even close to where Cody's technical skills were. So that might have played a bit of a part in me winning that, but certainly didn't change the fact that I won, I guess.
Yeah, a win is a win is a win. The crazy thing about TKO is how that race has evolved too, because before Cody was winning it, Mike Brown was winning it.
Yeah.
He was like the unbeatable guy.
Yeah.
And he would do it on a 4-stroke, I think, too.
Yeah.
Which is pretty insane. And then the way that the sport has progressed, it went from Mike Brown on a 4-stroke, who was just like super physically fit and able to make it work, to hard enduro like becoming more and more specialized, and then Cody starting to dominate it for all those years, and then now T Hart coming in, taking the win. How many times have you won Tennessee Knockout?
3.
So
I'm still, Cody has 6, so still a long ways to go. Halfway there though.
Yeah, for sure. How old are you right now?
27.
You're getting up there.
Yeah, I'm not young anymore. I'm a veteran, I guess. Still a lot younger than Cody and Colton are 34 and 35, I think. So they're definitely the real veterans, but of the next group, I'd say I'm the next veteran.
I think 27 is probably a good spot to be in, because you're still priming physically and athletically, and you also have enough experience to be able to be able to manage the emotions and the anxiety and the pressure of the race situations, and you just have that many more race situations that you've been in. So you have your file cabinet of race things that happen in a race is just filled with different things that you know how to react to. So I feel like you're in a good spot right now, and especially given the way that hard enduro is going and health and wellness. You have Jarvis racing into his 40s, 50s, 60s, and you could theoretically do this as long as you really wanted to.
Yeah, generally speaking, Jarvis kind of changed the game for everyone. He's a 47. I think he won Romaniacs at 44, so what he's done is truly incredible, in my opinion.
Yeah, the old guys can get it done, though. Evan Ask is a good rider. There's a lot of good, super solid older dudes that can rip.
Yeah, and Cody, too. He's, for like the last couple of years, I'm like, we're going to see a decline in Cody. But, man, if anything, he's gotten better the last 3 or so years. And he may be 36 or he's turning 36. So, truly, it's crazy what Cody has done the last couple of years.
It really is. And now just coming off of a King of Motos win.
Yeah. He looked good. Nuts. He looked the best I've seen him since I've, beaten him in 2020. That's like maybe one of the best I've seen him since then. So pretty cool to see from my perspective.
He looked really good. I mean, that was your first loss in the US Hard Enduro Series in 2 years, right?
Yeah, since 2021.
How did that go down for you?
Definitely wasn't my best race. There wasn't nothing special there for me, but after overcoming a lot the last couple of years to never lose one, eventually it was gonna happen. So it's a good thing almost for me. It's a reset, something to drive me a bit, because if I would have won that, it just would have been business as usual, and maybe I would have had less motivation. So usually in the past, every time Cody's beat me, I've been pretty fired up and usually rebounded really strong afterwards. So we have a race next weekend in Page, Grinding Stone, so it'll be interesting to see. Cody's definitely he's been riding a lot, though. For an old guy, it seems like he's riding more than he ever has in his life. So it's pretty crazy to me. So I'm interested to see how he does next weekend.
Yeah, he seems like he's been riding a lot, and he's fit right now. He seems like he's really fit because he's been dealing with that wrist injury and stuff. So I'm curious to see how he does, especially at a place like Page where it's feature-based obstacles, and he's really good at that. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited. Excited for a battle with that guy.
You seem like the type of rider, from what I know about you, that thrives on the competition. And when there's competition involved, you rise and become a better version of the racer that you are, where other riders and racers, that competition can kind of crush their soul a little bit and become less of who they are. And they kind of crumple under the pressure and the competition. They get scared, where you, it's like it feeds you. It gives you what you need to be able to be the robot.
It's actually funny you bring that up because it's actually kind of a love-hate relationship, especially like when I first started beating Cody. It was like I almost wanted him to mess up or have a mistake so I could just, have an easy win, because at that point I just, for whatever reason, I just didn't want to maybe work that hard, or because it's a lot of work if you're battling a guy like Cody for 3 hours. Like, it puts you in places you don't want to be. So I was like almost praying for, please just don't get up that hill or whatever. But now, like, after, I guess, winning a bunch, now I'm actually, I want the challenge, because generally speaking, in the last couple of years, some of my best races and most memorable is when I am pushed and then, something crazy happens and I can do, something a little extra special that I wouldn't do if I was challenged, which I think is probably the same for most athletes in any sport. When they're pushed to that absolute max, you're going to see something that they would never do unless they were pushed that hard. So now, getting a little bit older, that's kind of what I want. 2 years ago, Ryder and me had that crazy battle in Ohio, and that's one of my most fond memories from that year. Was I was super sick that week. I had poison ivy or something too. I had some other stuff going on. Maybe something with my back. I definitely was not good. In the prologue, he beat me by like 10 minutes or something, and I was like, wow. And then I remember the 4-hour race in Ohio in the mud. He's pretty good in the mud too. And yeah, I just honestly followed him the whole race and was just dragging my tongue, just trying to stay alive. It was a crazy race. And then like 5 minutes from the finish, I was peaking as hard as you could possibly peak. And I just made a crazy pass up the last gnarly section, and I won that race. And it was the best feeling I'd had that whole year. So, I mean, it's kind of weird that you don't always want it hard, but when it's hard, it's actually good for you. So it's a funny thing.
I could see how being able to train your mind how to push through when things get really difficult like that, and you just have to work so hard for it. I feel like that could almost harden your confidence and your belief in yourself, because if you're ever in that situation again, you can tap back into that and say, listen, I'm Trystan Hart, and I know that I'm going to win this race, or that I can pull through when I need to most. Where if you fail and you crumple under the pressure, that's just as bad, because then you don't gain that confidence that you need more than anything, and then you just become the crumbler instead of the riser.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. It's definitely a love-hate relationship, because it's such a dark, like, you're pushed to the absolute max, and it's not a fun place to be, and you don't want to be there too long. But if you can just push through, whoever pushes through basically that dark place the farthest usually is going to be the winner. So it's a weird thing.
Well, and when you're in that dark place, what's it like for you? What type of self-talk are you using? Because there's usually, people talk about having a devil on one shoulder telling you to give up, and then an angel on the other one telling you to keep going. And, everybody has their own version of what that looks like, but what does that look like for you?
I think it's really easy to just get caught in the negative because you're so tired. And at that point too, I didn't need to really win, because I think I had a points lead. I didn't need to win in that situation. So you're like also saying, you don't really need to win this. There's no point in, going that extra bit. But for whatever reason, I can't surrender like that. It wasn't, even though you really want to surrender and just say, or at least for me, I want to surrender sometimes just because it's so tough, like so tough. But you just got to keep fighting. You just got to keep fighting, and it's a long 4 hours, but at the same time, it's short and relative of life.
Do you think that that's something that people can foster and build into their life and their mind and their body and their physiology, or is that something that you're either born with or you're not?
You can definitely get better. Some people are just born a little tougher than others, but everyone can definitely get stronger, get mentally tougher. I definitely believe in that, but I also believe some people just have the ability to dig super deep, and it's hard to teach that. I read something or heard something somewhere that you need an ideal upbringing in life. You can't have it too hard and you can't have it too easy. You need it somewhere in between to be to be able to dig really deep. Because if you have it too hard, it just breaks you down to the point where you can't recover. And if you have it too easy, you don't really want to dig that deep. So I heard that, and that's, I think, kind of true for me. So I'm going to go with that.
It makes sense. It makes sense because if you have an athlete that's never roofed in the middle of July and when it's 120 degrees outside, you're going to have somebody that's naturally a little softer than the guy that's been roofing in the middle of July and then driving to the races on the weekends. So it's just, it makes sense. With that being said, what was your upbringing like?
Roofing, that's for sure. I roofed for like maybe 10 years on and off for my dad. And my dad, honestly, I probably owe a lot of this to him because he was really hard, not necessarily on me in racing, but just in life. He scared the shit out of me a lot. And I was always afraid. I was just always afraid of him, I'd say. He'd get on me and my brother sometimes, and I never wanted to disappoint him. That was definitely a big part of it. But he was just he's old school, blue collar roofer for 40 or 50 years now, almost 50 years. So he had a really tough upbringing, a lot tougher than me. And then he brought that, that hard ass to me. And in being an athlete, you need to be tough, obviously. So I owe a massive part of my career to him. And my mom was more of the softer person. She was like, if I had a scratch on me, she's like, "Oh, you don't need to ride today. You're okay." So it's actually kind of funny. But that was at least until I was maybe 18, and then they kind of just let me do my own thing at that point.
And was your dad hard on you in the sense of you have to work to make a living and you have to continue and keep going, or was it like if you want to make this happen, then you need to do it right now? Like what did him being hard on you look like?
He definitely never pushed me to do good. Like, he never cared if I got third or whatever place. As long as I tried my hardest, that was really the main thing. He definitely didn't want to see us pull off. I remember there was one time in Lytton, just a random race in Canada, and my brother had allergies and I had a shoulder injury, and we both pulled off that day, and he spent, I think, $1,000 that weekend on us. And he was so mad that we both, realistically, I could have finished the race probably, and I think my brother too, but he tore a strip off us, and I took it. My brother was better at dealing with that, but for me, I would just like bury it inside of me and really use that as motivation to not screw up. And I'd use that to train and come out the next race and win and prove a point to him that I'm not messing around. So there was like maybe 5 times at races in my whole life that he's really got mad at me and my brother, and I can almost remember every single one of them. And
wow,
so it's kind of crazy how that has played a major part in my career.
And how far does that get you? Like your dad being hard on you and telling you, "Hey, we spent $1,000 at the race this weekend, and you guys pulled off. Like, that's not acceptable." And then you coming back and internalizing that, and then getting motivated through that, and turning that into something better. How far does that get you? And then how do you continue? How do you keep your motivation throughout your career, even when your dad loves you for who you are.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's a tough one to answer. But I guess he just instilled that in me from a young age. Like one time we were going to a race when I was like 8, and he kicked me out of the car because I was fighting, and he drove away and didn't come back for like an hour, 30 minutes, whatever it was. And I just sat in the field in the middle of Canada by myself. So he was, that's a pretty, I guess, famous story in our family. That one has stuck with me a bit. So honestly, from a very young age, I was pretty straight and narrow with my dad because I was so scared.
You learned early to put some respect on his name.
Yeah, so now that we're older, I backtalk him a bit just because, for fun. But up until I was 18 or so, I was like, yes, sir, whatever you want. So he was pretty strict, and rightfully so. He was spending a lot of money on me and my brother, and he was working really hard running, a roofing company, and I saw that, so I took it pretty seriously. From when I was 16 is when I really started getting serious into competitive racing.
Is when you were 16, is that when did you have a come to moment when you were 16 where you're like, oh, I think I could do something with this, or this is what I really like to do? What flipped the switch for you at that point?
I don't really remember now, but I was definitely 16, and it was right before I broke my back that I was like, this is what I want to do. It's something to do with riding the dirt bike. I know for sure. It was just, I found that really fun. And then I broke my back right after. I'm like, this is what I want to do. And then I sat in a brace from my pelvis to my neck for 3 months or so. And that whole time I just thought about, what I'm going to do and how I'm going to get better. And, basically a whole life plan at that point, sitting in the bed. And my mom pulled me out of school because she was overprotective of me. She didn't want me getting bumped in my back, getting messed up, which was maybe a good thing because I maybe would have got a little rough in school with the boys and maybe messed up my back. So that shows how, protective my mom was of me. So, yeah. And then from that point on, I was just nailed to the grindstone. But I was still at that point, I was really I didn't have a lot of guidance because my dad, was a roofer. He knew nothing about being an athlete. So, the next 4 years or so was just me doing random stuff. And now looking back, if I had what lots of these kids have now, like Will, he's 20 years old and he gets to ride with me after everything I've gone through, and I know exactly what it takes now. It's a huge advantage for someone like Will, who's 20. And when I was his age, I wasn't riding not even close to what he's doing now. It's insane what he's doing. Him and Ryder are doing at the age of 23 and 20. So I wish I had that guidance back then, but at that point, Cody Webb was really the only guy, and he lived in California and I lived in Canada, and it just wasn't really an option. So looking back, I wish I had that guidance, but
he was probably figuring it out then too, because he was transitioning from trials still learning the ropes and figuring out how to perform. And there's trainers and there's some basic guidelines to how to train and how to prepare for hard enduro or just racing in general that you can find in YouTube, but it wasn't all there before.
Yeah, that's true. The sport is pretty young, and since I was 16, the sport of hard enduro and endurocross has just gone like crazy. And Cody would know that almost better than anyone because he was there at the start, and now he's here now, so he knows what the tracks were like back then. He knows what the pace was like, and now it's just, I'm sure he'd tell you, we're like 10 times better than he was back then.
It's also a testament to the athlete that he is, because he's been able to grow with the progression of the sport and rise to the occasion. And I mean, 2024, he just won the first round of the US Hard Enduro Series at King of Motos. So he just continues to get better and better throughout his career.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Super impressive. And what's it like? What's the mentality or the thought process like for you being open and willing to share your experience with the younger generation?
I think a couple years ago, I wasn't too keen on it just because I was protective of what I had built at that point, I guess. And I didn't want to lose the edge, I guess, if I had an edge at that point. But now I've just, become smarter, and I know giving up and helping, the young kids like Will and Ryder, it actually helps me because they're better than me at a lot of stuff too. So it's good to surround yourself with people that push you, and they definitely push me. So it's a positive relationship.
And how do you pinpoint the things that you aren't as good at as them? Like, how do you find your weaknesses? Is that through training with them, riding with them, or is that from the races? And how do you process those weaknesses and then move forward on those?
Well, I mean, it's no surprise last year at the prologue at Erzberg, Will got second in his first time there. So I mean, that's a crazy achievement for him at 19 or 20 years old. He got second at going really fast. So I mean, it's my first time there. I got 47th, I think, and I was not even close. And he was only 10 seconds behind Verona, who's one of the fastest guys in the world. So I mean, when it comes to going fast on slick surfaces, he's insane. And riding with Cody, his technical abilities you saw in St. George, it's insane. There's only maybe one other guy in the whole world that can do some of the stuff Cody can do. And Ryder, he's defying the odds. To be a short guy in this sport, it's almost unheard of. And what Ryder can do on a bike is, there's days that he completely waxes me on hill climbs. So we all kind of are better at some things. It's impossible to be the best at everything. So it's pretty cool it's frustrating sometimes when you see Cody do a line and you're like, it would take 10 years to maybe learn how to do that. But, it opens your eyes and makes you think in different ways of what's possible and what you can change to better yourself.
It's crazy to think that you watch Cody do a line and then you think, oh, that would take me 10 years to learn.
That was maybe an exaggeration, but
I mean, even with the exaggeration, I mean, it's just insane. I guess all I'm saying is it highlights how specialized some guys are and how good some guys are, because you are the double champ, right? You triple champ. Sorry, you're the triple champ, and then a guy like Cody Webb, who's a legend in all respects, can do things on a motorcycle that you look at and say, I don't even know if I want to do that. I don't even know if I want to try that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember a couple of years ago, it would be tough because he'd do some lines and it would just boggle my mind how he'd even do it. And he could make, a 3-minute section into 30 seconds just from, doing a splat here and a little kick here. And all of a sudden he was up and I'd push up it for 3 minutes. And so then I'd have to make up that time somewhere else, which 3 minutes is a lot. But it's crazy that, we have such different skills, but most of the time me and Cody end up riding together in almost every race. So it's crazy how it evens out.
Do you feel like you've closed the gap in his technical skill ability and your technical skill ability, and that you can close the gap in other ways too with your fitness and your overall tenacity and competition mode?
Yeah, well, generally speaking, I'm not really known for doing anything. Like, I don't think I do any one thing. Maybe hill climbs I do better than most people, but there's not really one skill I have that's crazy good, or that I don't think I'm looked at for like, wow, look, Tristan's really good at that. Yeah. I'm just like kind of good everywhere, and I tie it all together really well. And then I think I bring my mentality and my natural fitness. I just have a pretty decent natural fitness that I've always had since I was a kid, and I tie that all together, and in a 4-hour race, it works out pretty well.
And how did you develop your mentality and your mindset for these races? Because there's a noticeable difference between you and everybody else in most of these races. And sometimes people take a more laid back approach, and I'm not throwing any shade on any other racers. I've raced you, but there's just a noticeable difference in how you operate, especially, I mean, we were in the gym earlier this week or the last couple of weeks you've been here, I've been going to the gym with you guys, and to see how you behave when we're playing Red Dot, the game, a hacky sack game where we kick the thing 3 times and then throw it at each other as hard as you can. It's like, who is this man? What's going on here? What's happening inside his brain? And I don't know if is it because you're hyper competitive and you're ultra competitive and you feed off that. Is it because you see these races as an opportunity that you're grateful to have the opportunity to compete in? What's your mindset like?
Well, I guess I'll ask you a question. You ever seen anyone more competitive than me?
Whew. The only person that compares would be Taylor Robert.
Yeah.
He is
Taylor's
feisty,
really competitive.
super competitive.
Me and him actually became good friends that year, 2021, when he did Hard Enduro.
Yeah.
Because me and him are super similar. You know, we both like money. We both like being super competitive. So we actually kind of became pretty good friends that year. And even when we were doing track walk, we were racing each other up hills and
On the feet.
Yeah, on the feet. It was in Idaho, and it was the last climb to get to the chairlift, and we raced each other up it. And that was the day before a 4-hour hard enduro, and I don't think that crossed either of our minds, but we raced up there. So, yeah, me and Taylor are both pretty competitive, and I don't really know where that came from, but I got a couple good stories about it. We were in PE class in like grade 10 or 11, and we were playing 4 corners soccer, basically, and there's maybe 3 soccer balls, and there's 10 people on each corner, and you got to put the ball in the net. And then all of a sudden these kids in my school started calling me try hard and all these names, and it actually kind of affected me, and I lowered my standard because I didn't like being singled out of that guy that tries hard.
Interesting.
But now looking back on it, I wish I wouldn't have been so affected. I wish I would have just not even talked to them or even acknowledged it and just kept doing what I was doing, because what I was doing was actually creating what I've now been able to perfect the last 10 years or so.
Try hard.
Yeah. And then there was another story in grade 5. So I was or grade 7. It was grade 7. I was pretty young, whatever age that is, 13, 14. And there was this kid that hit puberty, and there was a 5K race at the end of the year, and we do 5K runs every day or a couple times a week, whatever. And this kid that hit puberty got so fast that year, and normally I was always the fastest runner, and for some reason this kid was like so fast. So I just went on with my year of not beating him once, and then the day the race came, I found another gear and pushed myself to the absolute max, and I waxed him that day by a lot. And then like 100 feet from the finish, I think I threw up and then walked to the finish. Someone helped me get to the finish because I'd pushed myself so hard just to prove a point that I could still, beat him.
This is in 5th grade?
That was in 7th grade.
Fuck.
So I was just there was nothing that was going to get between me and
the victory.
The victory, yeah. And there's actually another story that in grade 3, I think, we used to go on runs, and this one kid that was really competitive with me, the edge of the road had like maybe a 15-foot gradual drop, and he'd come up beside me on the left, and I'd start pushing him close to the edge, like making him go back around behind to the other side of me just to like take that little bit of energy from him. And that was just subconscious. Like I wouldn't even think about that. That was just my first reaction, was to somehow make his day a little bit harder. And that's at the age of 10 I was doing that.
Damn.
So it's just like, and I don't think about it. That was just my reaction, was I got to make this guy's life tougher, because right now he's making my life tough.
Closing the gap when you're 10 years old on guys.
So it's just it's just
a ruthless,
pretty ruthless,
I'm going to win mentality.
I'm sure I piss a lot of my friends off when I get too competitive. But
you can't help that. It's not, I feel like it's not something that you're thinking about. Like you said, it's subconscious. You're not going, oh, I really want to win today, and I'm going to win at all cost, and let's go, let's get hyped up. Like, you're not hyped up about it. You're just doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird, and for sure it pisses people off, but I don't hear about it. No one tells me anything. So I just carry on with what I'm doing. Like even I guess even with my girlfriend, we were just climbing last week, and she's really good. She's been climbing her whole life, and we got into a climb off that day at the gym with my girlfriend of 10 years, and we just see who could get the most V4s that day.
Did Michaela get you?
I got her by one.
Whew, that's close. That's a little too close for comfort, huh?
Yeah.
And it's almost like it was meant to be, that you just had this inherent competitive drive, and it's like, at what point did you realize that you were different than the people around you, or was there a point?
Probably, in grade 7 when I did that kid hit puberty and he waxed me, and then all of a sudden when it really counted, I brought it. That's something I've remembered since then, and it's been 10, 12 years. So I think that was maybe a bit of an eye-opener. I'm sure there's a bunch of different scenarios it's happened, but I can't think of them.
It's funny how you start to develop your character at a young age. I have a couple similar stories, and like where I was at tennis camp one time, and there's like 30 people or whatever it was, and we did like whoever could keep their feet 6 inches off the ground, laying on their back the longest in a circle on a tennis court. And I remember once we started, I was like, well, we started, and I'm a dirt biker, and I'm me, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to hold my legs up the longest. And I did. I won it. I smoked everybody, but it was like, why is that? What is that? Why is that there? And how can I do that all the time? And it would almost be a shame to waste that competitiveness. You know what I mean? Like, what a great usage of you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be a bummer if you were stuck working in an office doing something for somebody else that you didn't want to be doing, and you just had this fire burning inside of you that you couldn't let burn?
Yeah, well, now I think that maybe now that I am getting older, I'm starting to realize that I can apply that to anything in life when I'm done racing, because I'm definitely closer to the end now than the start, in my opinion. I'm not going to go forever. So even if I went to 35, it's actually scary how close that is, how quick that's going to go. So that definitely scares me, and that pushes me in itself. But yeah, I think I bring this competitiveness to anything I do in life, and that helps me sleep.
Yeah, for sure. And I think having the end in sight and knowing that your time is limited, that in itself is such a valuable mindset to have, because then it makes you grateful for the times makes you grateful for the opportunities that you have in front of you. And I feel like a lot of people, and including myself at times, have just kind of raced through life or raced through races and not necessarily been aware of the limited amount of times that this is going to actually happen, and that if you want something, now is the time. There's no other time to do this, to do what you want to do. Now is the time.
Like when Todd gave us that speech before Idaho.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
He was saying you're going to be at some desk job in 10 years doing some crappy stuff, and take this opportunity tonight. And he was doing it, I think, just to give the crowd a good show, but he was right about it.
He was right.
Wrong.
He was right in a lot of ways. He was right. He's like, you guys are professional athletes. There's everybody in these stands, and everybody around you would kill to be in this position, and you could be working for some guy at a desk that you don't want to be doing, and someday you might be doing that. So for right now, give it everything you got, put it all on the line, and when that green flag flies, let it go. You know what I mean?
And then I got the whole shot.
Is that?
And I won that night.
Nice. I was at Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
That was the night. I got a story about Idaho Falls.
Do you think I can go to the bathroom?
Yeah. Idaho Falls. Piss break. Pause. Well, thank you for bearing with us, guys. We just had to take a quick bathroom break. But we're back in the studio here. We were talking about Endurocross a little bit. We had some good conversations going out in the living room, but actually I have a good place to pick up. We were just talking about Idaho Falls 2023 Endurocross. And I had a couple good rides that weekend, but I remember the first night, Friday night, after practice.
I was fired up for you.
Yeah, I did. You were fired up for you too, because you came out of that tunnel. This is one of the funniest things. I don't know why I thought this was so funny, and it was just everything about it was great. But we come out of the tunnel after practice 1 or 2, and Trystan comes out of the tunnel with one hand on the bar, and he just goes like this. Just shot every single one of us in his mind, just riding out of the tunnel, just like, pew, 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 just like that. I'm like watching him, like, what a fucking savage. And then I'm like laughing and I'm kind of feeding off it. And then I try it too, boom, boom, and I start doing it, and he starts getting excited. And we had each other all riled up because I was kind of feeling juicy that night, and then obviously T Hart was too. So we put it down.
That was pretty funny.
And you won that night.
Yeah.
And when you were doing that, what was the visual? What were you thinking about?
Well, the whole backstory was I had just come off three fifths in a row. So I was in a pretty dark hole. Seemed like my whole world was coming to an end. And then, so a little backstory is I came up with my own suspension setting that year for Endurocross because of the new bike. And I was going between PDS and linkage, and I didn't really know what to go with. I ended up going with linkage just so I could piggyback off other riders because no one was riding the PDS. But then I still went with my own setting that I thought was good. But I was getting arm pump leading up to Endurocross like the full month before, which was a little abnormal. So that was kind of playing in the back of my mind. Went to the first round, was actually riding really good. I was 1 lap away from winning the first moto. So I got a second. Life was all good. And then it seemed like just everything came unraveled. I think I got a 6th, maybe a 5th, and I ended up 5th overall. I flew to Hispania the next day. Was riding really good there, actually, for not riding the 2-stroke in like a month. And I missed a turn on the prologue, and me and Tio somehow got into the lead because I missed the checkpoint or the turn. And I got penalized massively for that. And so I ended up starting like minutes back on not adjusted time of the leaders. Came back, almost got on the podium. Didn't. Got 5th again. Flew straight back to California. Rode 1 time, I think. Went to Prescott. Was actually feeling pretty decent. And then everything came unraveled that night. Got another 5th, 3 fifths in a row, which I don't think I'd ever done when I was at a peak yet. So I was like, and I think for Prescott too, I rented a Mercedes rental car for that weekend. I spent a little extra money just to try and help the confidence out. Didn't matter. I still got another 5th. It didn't matter. And that weekend actually was that's the race where I broke my thumb at. So there's a bit of bad juices there anyways. But anyways, another 5th. Go to Idaho Falls, but we did suspension testing that week because I was still kind of getting arm pump and not feeling that great. And they gave me Ryder and Colton suspension, but they didn't tell me which one was which. And from watching both of them and generally knowing what Colton rides, they gave me one, and I instantly knew within the first 10 seconds that my whole world was about to change the next weekend. I assumed it was Riders just because it felt soft, and I knew Haker runs a really stiff setup. It turned out it was Haker's suspension, which I've ridden before, and it's way, way different than what I like. So going into the weekend, I'm like, I'm on Riders suspension. It's soft. I'm not getting arm pump, and I'm feeling good. So now we go to practice. I'm feeling like I'm kind of the man at this point. I come out of the tunnel. I don't think I won practice, but I was P2 or P3, but more importantly, I was feeling good and feeling like the robot was back. Come out of the tunnel, Max is there, shoot him with my gun, feeling really good. Yeah, so at that point, I knew it was going to be a good night. Didn't know if I was going to win, but I was pretty sure I was going to be in the chances to win. Won that night, and then won the next night in a crazy final third moto, and that kind of changed that whole Endurocross championship around.
So you turned it around at Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy to hear the backstory on the shooting him down thing because I just happened to be there for a moment in time when things were starting to click back for you again after a little bit of a hole, and you were just like, yeah, baby. Tristan's back, Robot's back. Look out, I'm shooting every single one of you down. And I remember seeing that, like, damn, that's fucking gnarly. Like, that's intense. Like, he's shooting us. And it was, you were aiming high. You weren't shooting our feet. You weren't shooting us in the, you'd want straight from the forehead. I'm like, damn, Robot's not fucking around tonight, son. And sure enough, you were not.
Yeah, no, that was a good weekend for me. And it's kind of crazy, like, how down I was on myself, because it was only 1 month. Those 3 races were all within 1 month, and it almost felt like my whole world was coming to an end in that month. Like, in such a short time, it just seemed like, I put a lot of emphasis on my racing, which is a good and a bad thing. But, I'm not sure what's the right answer there. But
do you feel like that in some ways exposed a weakness in yourself, where you feel like your self-worth is just about racing, and your self-worth is reliant on your results at the races? Because, I mean, shit, a top 5 for a guy like me is something to shoot for. I get a top 5. That's a victory in my world.
It actually isn't even so much about the result, because it's actually more just about me getting the real Trystan and feeling like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So when you can do this, and you want to do this, and then you put, that's where I want to be. I come out and I'm riding like this. It's just like, and it was like I was way off where I should have been at that point. Even Johnny at that point had won all 6 motos. No one was even, at that point, no one was talking about me. Johnny was going to win the title at that point. But for me, all I cared about, I didn't care about the title. I just wanted to ride good. And so as soon as I came off in practice and I was riding good, like, honestly, I don't think it mattered if I won that night or not. I was just happy that I was riding good, and I was back to where I wanted to be. So that was really important to me, just to, to be where I thought I should be and where I wanted to be.
And so when you're riding well, is the result a tell as to how well you are riding, or do you base your riding off of purely how you feel?
For me, generally speaking, I don't go so much off result. It's more about how I think the race should go and how I need to execute. And then, like, Erzberg, I podiumed Erzberg for the first time, and you wouldn't have known it when I crossed the finish, because I was so upset that it didn't go the way I wanted to. And then I podiumed again this year, and I was still upset because I didn't execute it the way I wanted to. So it's when I set expectations for myself, and I'm not even close to where I want to be. Like, I'm not comparing myself to Manny or Billy, but just when I know I can do this on a regular basis, and then I, spend 2 weeks, go to Europe, go to Austria, race the race I want to win, and I perform at a level less satisfactory than I want, then it's just like almost a waste of time for me, because it's just like, I guess you got to go through that sometimes, but it's super frustrating when you can do this, but you're executing at a low level.
It's so hard though, because there's so many factors that goes into it. You have you as Trystan Hart, the human being, who has life factors, girlfriends, money, job, relationships, travel. You have all these things that make up the human of Trystan Hart, and then the racing element. You have your bike, and then within your bike, you got your engine, your suspensions, your frame, new bike models that you're trying to get used to. You have all these things in that world that you have to get perfect also, and then you travel to the race, and then everything is always different at the race, as we all know. It's really hard to duplicate racing from what we all know.
Yeah.
The only way to get better at racing is to go race. So then you have this whole race element, especially when you're going overseas. You're trying to eat some weird unknown meat that they have in the hotel lobby, and you're trying to take a shit the morning of the race, and you can't because you're all off, and it's so much different. People don't even realize how different it is traveling overseas to go race motorcycles. And on top of all that, you're trying to perform at your peak, and it's so difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult.
Yeah. I'd say that's really eaten at me the last 2 years or so, is going to Europe, spending so much time, and basically losing money sometimes, because if I'm not on the podium, I'm just going there for a money loss, which I don't even care about, because I know it's just an investment in myself. But it's just like, damn, dude, there's just so many things going on, and it's just so frustrating.
I want to talk about you traveling to Europe for racing the World Hard Enduros, but before that, I want to wrap up the Endurocross season from last year, because you had a strong start, then you was dealing with some suspension and some arm pump difficulties. Seems like you overcame that at Idaho Falls, and you shot him down in Idaho Falls. And I wanted to ask you about suspension, though, really quick. Haker's known for having a stiff setting. I don't really know what Ryder's known for having, and I guess I don't really know. I feel like you're known for just having neutral stuff across the board, just something that works. And how, I guess my question is what's the range? Like, how stiff can people go for endurocross, and how soft can people go within a range that actually works?
Yeah, the funny thing about that is I've used Haker's suspension in the past accidentally. They put it on my bike. I went to go ride, and I'm like, for me, it's unrideable. In the past, I've used it twice, Haker's suspension, and it's unrideable.
Too stiff?
Yeah. Like, if anyone knows fork spring rates, I was running like a 4.2, 4.4-ish, and he was running like a 4.8, which is like borderline supercross forks. They're like a 5.2 spring rate. And honestly, going around on the practice track, I couldn't even ride. Like, I was maybe 4 seconds off what I should have been, but then the arm pump comes in because now the bike's not working, like I want it to, and it was honestly just a waste of a day using his suspension. So it's crazy.
How does he do it?
He obviously changed, because now he's come closer to where I've been in the past, because this new stuff he's on was not super stiff. It may still have been a big spring rate, but it was sure a lot softer.
And everybody's talking about the new bikes, the new KTM models, the new 2024 chassis, 2023, I think, is when KTM went to it, whatever the newest model bike is. But everybody's talking about how stiff that chassis is and how it takes 10 hours just to break in to get comfortable. And I guess the question is what is your suspension setup testing protocol look like to get that bike dialed in, and how much different is that bike than the old proven model?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm the best suspension tester. Generally speaking, don't notice a lot unless they make a huge change. But this year we definitely did a lot. We went a lot of different directions. Didn't find a lot of answers. And to answer the second question, the new bike is a lot stiffer. The frame is different. We have the new frame now, which is quite a bit softer.
The new frame.
The new frame, the 24 frame, I guess.
So that makes a big difference. That little hole in the frame, that makes a big difference.
Flexes a bit. So it's a different bike, that's for sure. It just works differently. It's better at some things. Some things it's worse at, though. So it's kind of just like anything. It's a give and take. If you want more here, you got to give up a little here. So it's not like it was a big change. And it's something I hadn't even gone through in my career, because I've been on the same bike for the last 5 years. So that was actually a bit of an eye-opener for me, because since 2019 or so, I've been on the same bike. So that was, and generally speaking, I didn't change the suspension for 4 years. So I was just so used to the same thing. It ain't broke. And then I had the new bike, and that just had me spinning circles.
Oh, that's tough when you're spinning circles looking for the answer, and you don't know which way to go, but you know that you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
It wasn't that I wasn't comfortable, but I was just missing that little bit. Like, I was still riding at a really high level, and I could do most of the things I wanted to do, but I was missing that, that little bit of zone I wanted. I wanted to get in that zone a little bit easier, a little bit faster.
A little bit of extra flow state that you need.
A little bit of extra, and I was just missing that until I got on Hager's suspension, and then I was
boom,
literally within maybe a quarter of a lap, I knew it was going to completely change my whole season.
Whoa.
Like instantly.
That is so crazy.
That was a good feeling.
That's so crazy.
That definitely lifted my mood.
Yeah, and I feel like there's different mentalities with suspension and bike setup, but I feel like the successful guys that I've seen and watched race and trained with, like Taylor, you, Cody, myself, these guys aren't looking for the perfect setup in every scenario. They just want something that's good, predictable, solid, that they can get used to.
Yeah, that's pretty much me. From the moment I got on the factory suspension, like I said, in 2019 or 2020, I never changed a single clicker for 4 years. I rode the same hard enduro setup and never, because I just knew it was solid from the moment I got on it. And we did make one change, I think. I tried Manny's bike, and there was something a little different that made a bit of a difference. But generally speaking, like, almost no changes for 3 to 4 years.
And as a homegrown Canadian roofer, what's it like transitioning from the dude that's been working his ass off during the week with his old man, running circles around the roofs, trying to make it to the races on the weekends, spending all your money, working with whatever bike setup that you got? I remember watching you pump up your air forks in 2017 or 16 or something at the Everett Endurocross. Like, what are you doing with those air forks, dude? And you're like, pumping them up, getting ready for the race. I'm like, they're not already pumped up? What's the deal, man? What are you? I guess my point is, what's the transition like going from homegrown Canadian roofer to full factory unstoppable Trystan Robot Hart?
I guess I'm kind of living the dream. I wouldn't change much in my life. I wouldn't want to be a supercross racer, I don't think, and make, millions and millions more, because I just don't think that's who I am. I like being in the mountains, riding hard enduro, and that's just really suits the guy who Trystan is. So I just, from like a young age, I just liked being adventurous, like going where no one had ever been before. So it's honestly, and then you combine that with the competitive attitude that I have, it kind of makes for a deadly weapon.
Deadly weapon. Because you've raced motocross, you've raced hare scrambles, you've raced different disciplines of off-road, but you settled on hard enduro. And is that because you're combining the elements of riding the dirt bike itself, which is obviously lots of fun, and then you're combining that with the adventure aspect, going up mountains, down creeks, up through, around stuff that most people haven't ridden?
Yeah, I guess I'd say I just get bored with moto.
Yeah.
I can go ride moto, and I think it's a lot of fun, but after a while, it's just like you're doing the same track for 30 minutes, which is good for a little bit, but then eventually it's like you're going back to the same track again and then again. And for me, I'm just like, I just don't like it that much. It's something about just being in the mountains and riding up gnarly terrain that people sometimes can't even walk up. It's just like a crazy sensation.
It is, yeah. Dude, and mad respect to the supercross and motocross racers, because those guys are grinding week in, week out, riding the same supercross track. I mean, and you might change the supercross track, but it's still just a supercross track. And after however many 20-minute motos you do on that thing, I'm sure that gets boring. So I don't know how those guys do it. I feel like that would just be so monotonous. So mad respect to them.
Yeah, they work hard. They have a really tough schedule with what they do. So mad respect to them. But just I guess I prefer the mountains and pushing my bike.
Mountains are good. Mountains are good. So you regroup in Idaho Falls. You shoot them down, and then you kind of remount your horse, and you regroup, and you say, maybe the robot can do this. And how do you move forward from there?
Well, at that point, Johnny had a massive swing in momentum, I guess. I brought the momentum. I won 2 in a row. And I don't think he won another moto the rest of the year. Once I won that first moto in Idaho Falls, he didn't win another one the rest of the year. And the year before, 2022, we almost had a complete reversal where I started the season really strong. I had almost a 20-point lead, and basically the pressure got to me. And I don't know for sure, but it almost seemed like a bit of pressure got to him maybe. I don't know for sure. He's a bit older, so it would be weird if the pressure did get to him, but it certainly seemed like the guy that won the first 6 motos didn't show up again because he didn't win another moto the rest of the year. So then we go to Redmond, and Haker's feeling good. He's feeling really good in Redmond.
Damn, Haker, that's right.
Yeah, he had a couple slow years the last couple, but this year, the real Haker, it seemed like came.
Yeah.
This year was actually pretty crazy because it seemed like Haker was at his best form. Cody came really in Idaho Falls, but it seemed like he was at his best form. And Johnny seemed like he was at his best form. And then at Idaho Falls, I came into my best form. So it was actually a pretty crazy championship, I would say.
I feel like Endurocross is more competitive than it's ever been at this point. And yeah, it's always easy to say that and to water that down, and I don't want to do that because the sport is always subject to whatever riders and whatever's happening at that time. But with that being said, it is incredibly difficult to be racing in Endurocross right now. I mean, the top guys are so gnarly. I remember the amateur class used to be just, local pros and local people that was trying to ride the track. But now the amateur class is almost like semi-pro guys that are like getting ready to move into the pro class, and there's been years and years and years of experience to draw upon and learn from and videos to watch, and it's just different now. It's different.
Yeah. Now I've been saying for a while, there's like 9 or 10 guys that on any given night with Carnage or whatever happens, there's 9 or 10 guys that could be on the podium. You in Idaho Falls, I think you were super close to a podium. I know. I was coming up to you and talking to you, I remember.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like if you could get through some carnage in the early laps and just be there at 1, 2, or 3, then the guys at the back would have a really tough time getting any one of those 9 through first place guys. So everyone's riding really good right now, and the start is maybe more important than ever, it seems.
Yeah.
The start is playing a big factor these days.
Yeah, and what's your take on the tracks? Do you think the tracks are different than what they've been in the past? Or do you think that they're more difficult, less difficult? Or do you think that they're the same or similar, but that everybody's just gotten better?
Yeah, I guess you could say that a couple different ways, but it seemed like for 4 years, from 2017 to 2020, the tracks were pretty fast. 2021, maybe they were still getting a little fast, and then in 2022, it seemed like the tracks got a bit harder, and then this year, it seemed like the tracks, in my opinion, were pretty difficult. They
the
weren't
matrices were deep.
It wasn't just like jumps like in Vegas in 2017 where the whole track was just a jump. This year, the tracks, I think, were all pretty technical. Most of the riders gave the promoter a hard time, and so they ended up throwing a couple curveballs our way. And also when when you keep raising the level of speed, it makes those same obstacles that much harder because you're pushing that much more and your heart rate's higher, so you're more prone to mistakes, in my opinion.
With a more difficult track?
With the same track, but if everyone keeps going faster and faster, then your heart rate's just going to keep getting higher and higher, and then you're prone to mistakes. Surely the higher your heart rate goes, the same track, you're going to be prone to making mistakes if your heart rate's higher than, say, if you weren't pushing as hard.
Do you think that the heart rates are going to be the same level no matter what the tracks are, because guys are going to be fighting for position at no matter how difficult or not difficult the tracks are?
I know for me, if there's lots of jumps, for me I'm definitely lower. Where if it's like lots of logs that don't have any dirt on them, you're like literally just bodying these obstacles.
Bodying them.
Literally bodying. And this year, there was a lot of obstacles you had to body, which just takes so much energy because you got to hold on so tight with your legs and your arms. Where like 2017 Las Vegas, literally you could just seat bounce half the jumps on that track. So your heart rate still may be high, but you're not having to do those extra little spurts of,
Yeah.
you say bodying through an obstacle,
Yeah.
which just tears your muscles apart.
It's a good way to word it, because that's exactly what it feels like when you coming in to a big log and you can see the bottom of the log and the dirt, and you're just like, bop, bop, and then you get kicked, and it's like, it's brutal. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes so much energy. What do you think the optimal endurocross track is?
I think what we had this year was optimal. I think in Europe the track's maybe too technical, and it just turns into whoever can not crash is going to win, which has been Billy. And it just seems like they're arm pump tracks, and you're going so slow, where I think our tracks have a little bit more racing to them. And yeah, I think our tracks are pretty sick. I think the Europeans want our tracks too, but their promoters just want it to be gnarly, and they're kind of stuck in that way right now.
For sure. Okay, so endurocross tracks we'll talk about, and then I want to talk about going over to Europe and what it's like over there. It's definitely two things I want to cover. And I want to talk about your children's book.
Nice.
I read your children's book to my niece and nephew.
Oh yeah.
To go to bed. He fucking loves it.
Yeah.
Yogi. Oh, dude.
Yogi.
His name's Yogi.
That's
so
sick.
cute. He's so cute, dude. He's got this giant head, and he's like, what is he, 3? 3 years old. He's got this giant head. Cutest little guy ever. Is that Uncle Max? Is that Uncle Max? Is that Uncle Max? I'm like, no, this is Trystan Hart. He wrote this book. This is his book. But I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it. It's good. I think it's good that you wrote that book.
It's pretty cool, to be honest. Way cooler than I ever could imagine that working out when I got approached about it. And then we wrote it together, me and Ben. And then I guess everyone that it's touched, it's crazy the impact it's had, which is pretty cool for me, giving back like that and seeing all these kids that it brings happiness to them. It's pretty rewarding, I gotta say.
Do you get a lot of parents coming up to you saying, oh, we bought your children's book and we read it to your kids and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, a lot of people on Instagram actually send me pictures of the kids reading it at night, which is, I read them all and reply. So it's pretty cool to see that, to be honest.
That's awesome. And what's your sales? Where are you at? How many books have you sold?
I don't know for sure, because I'm not really in charge of that. It's a couple hundred, so it's not bad actually.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you think you have plans to write another book someday?
It's actually in the works right now.
You're writing a book.
May or not be about my endurocross season.
Really?
Yeah.
You're writing your own book specifically about the 2023 endurocross season?
Might be, the lead up to that, just because I had so many injuries and a lot of stuff out of my control happened, and I'd gotten second so many times in the championship, second and third. And then finally, I thought I was going to win it in 2022. I was that close, and then everything just came out. And then in 2023, I wasn't going to win it, and then I did win it. So it's actually kind of a cool story. So kind of working on that right now, maybe.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Don't know yet.
The Robot Races Endurocross.
Still working on that.
I like it.
Yeah.
Dude, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We need more people doing more stuff like that. I think it's important to add to the world.
Yeah.
To add to the...
It's cool to give people, even if one person reads that and sees what I had to go through just to win that, it was, if I could change their life a little bit, that would be worth it. So.
And I think you will. I think in the world of being an athlete, there's like a number of things that you need to cover to be a successful and virtuous adult. And you need to make money. You need to have healthy relationships. You need to have a healthy relationship with yourself, and you also need to find purpose somewhere along the way. And as an athlete, you can almost get caught in this loop of guilt of like, yeah, I'm living out everybody else's dream.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being a professional athlete. Like my life is almost too good. But the reality is you are given this opportunity to inspire other people. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, where athletes find their purpose.
Yeah, definitely something that didn't cross my mind up until maybe last year, because I was I just want to win, just want to win. I don't care about anything else. And now I'm getting older, and more things are just important to me, and not so much winning anymore, which I think is pretty normal as an athlete to go through something like that. In the beginning, it's just results, want to be cool, want to be fast, and then as you get older, there's a lot more to it than just being on the top step. And sponsors see that, your fans see that, so it's something that I'm still learning too. I still have a long ways to go in that aspect of my life.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, what other ways? I feel like you've probably received a lot from other athletes. I know that you and I have had discussions outside of this podcast where you've learned a lot from other previous athletes and books and things that people have done, and you've drawn upon other people's success and experiences to add to what it takes to become you.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can add to that.
Now I can try and give a little piece of me to try and help some other people. Yeah, so hopefully we achieve that.
And who have you drawn upon? What has inspired you?
Definitely Michael Jordan in that Netflix documentary. I really didn't know much about Michael Jordan, but I knew he was good at basketball. But then that documentary came out, and I think I finished it in one night, the whole thing. And since then, I probably watched it maybe 10 times, maybe more even. I think there was a time in the last 2 years that on every plane ride, I'd watch at least 1 or 2 episodes.
Whoa.
So I almost know, like that documentary, I almost know every word.
Whoa.
Yeah, so. And I'm honestly nothing like Michael Jordan. I won't say that, but he's super competitive. And so I think something about that just, I'm competitive too. So we have a little similarity there. So that just kind of, for whatever reason, kind of brought me interested in him and what he's all about. And then since then, I've read Andre Agassi, a tennis player. I read his book, which was pretty cool because he went through a lot of stuff in his life too. A lot of stuff that you don't really know about until you dive in. And a documentary or a book is the ultimate, because you really get to go through their whole life with them. You get to basically, in your mind, go through their whole life and see almost everything they went through. Because in a 400-page book, you can learn and vision so much stuff, which is, in my opinion, really cool. I really like that about books. It's like you're living their life for a little bit.
Yeah, you can like step into their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
How are you? What do you and Michael Jordan not have in common?
Jumping, throwing. I'm not good at.
No, really. I mean, obviously physical differences in what you guys do, but like mentality speaking wise, like how do you guys, where do you differ?
I guess in mentality, I mean, we're not too far apart. He's honestly, one of the best athletes. They say in that he's you could argue he's better at his job than anyone that's ever done a job in their life, because he was almost so perfect. But then in the documentary, you also learn that he went 7 years without winning the NBA title, which it's a crazy amount of time. To go through getting beat and beat and beat, and he just got beat and beat for so long. And he's one of the greatest basketball players ever. And that I don't think is really, like, people don't remember that. But I'm sure for him, 7 years of going, and lots of those years he didn't make the playoffs even. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy.
It is crazy.
Can I go pee quick?
Yeah, I kind of got to piss too.
I chugged that tea.
Technical difficulty, piss break. We were talking about books, where you draw inspiration from. Michael Jordan, Andre Agassi. Book-wise, let's talk about books for a second. What are a couple books that you've been able to draw a lot of inspiration from and that you would recommend to people to read?
I just read the new Arnold Schwarzenegger book. I've listened to a bunch of his podcasts, and I've been a pretty big fan of him for a while, because I think he's a really hard worker. I think he was smart, and I think he did a lot of good things in the world, in my opinion. from what I've, learned and read and stuff. So it's a pretty good book called Be Useful, which is, I think, an important thing to live by. Just be useful in the world and make it a better place, which is what I hope to do. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm, doing a decent job at that. I think last year I actually kept track. I read like 20 books. But
20 books?
At least, and lots of them, at least half of them were over 500 pages. So
whoa. Are these all biographies?
Nah, I mean, I'd say half the books I read are business books, solely on just financial stuff and, houses or investments or something like that. And then maybe 25% is about, I don't know what you call, just like fiction. Usually, this year actually I read Colleen Hoover, which most males won't know, but it's a female. It's about a his and hers, just, that's kind of good stuff for me at least. And then the other 25% would be biographies, I'll say.
Interesting. And do you read at night?
If I have anything left in the tank, but normally I wake up in the morning and that's when I do all my reading.
Early.
From like 6 to 9, somewhere in there, depending on when I wake up, what I did the day before. But in the morning, I got all my energy. So, if I try reading late at night, I'm just like kind of groggy and stuff and I can't function too well. So,
bro, I can tell that you have all your energy in the morning.
Yeah.
When you go to the gym at the start of the workout, when we're playing Red Dot, you're like, what? You like can't get enough of it. Yeah. You want it all. And then towards the end of the workout, you're like getting a little quieter.
If there's anything important I got to do that day, it's got to be done by like 2:00 or so, because then I start signing off slowly. Which actually makes Endurocross pretty tough, because it starts at 7 p.m. at night, and by the time I get there, this year I was falling asleep in half the races. So that's certainly an aspect of that that's really hard for me, because I'm just such a morning person and the night is tough. But I always have a coffee and try and wake up a bit.
Try to get it going again.
Yeah.
It is tough. That is. And then you have like this massive cortisol spike before bed.
And then I stay up till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Most of the time I just rewatch the race when I get back to the hotel, because I don't even try sleeping. Yeah, it's all jacked up.
And then you sleep in.
Then I usually wake up at 6 and read.
Really?
Almost, it doesn't matter what time I go to sleep at. I almost always wake up between 6 and 6:40ish.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
you're programmed.
My trainer Jared's probably not too happy because don't get maximal sleep, but that's just the way I'm built, I guess.
Yeah, and if you're sitting there and your wheels are turning and your fire's burning, and it's 6:00, what use is it just laying there with a burning fire? Let's go.
Yeah, so get some coffee going and get the day going.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the Arnold Schwarzenegger book, the Andre Agassi book, the Michael Jordan documentary. Where else do you draw inspiration from?
Kobe. Really, really like Kobe. This year I actually read the Phil Jackson book, where he was the coach of Kobe and Michael Jordan. So it was actually cool. It was cool to see from his perspective, because it's different from an athlete's perspective, where their coach has a completely different perspective on what made them tick, all the different stuff. So that was actually a pretty good book, at least for what I'm interested in. I learned some different things. So that was a cool book. What else? Too many books.
Well, it's good that you're doing that. I think a lot of people just kind of go through life and they don't care about learning something enough to have the desire to read the book. So it's good that you do that and then you apply it. I feel like for me, sometimes I read the book and then I'll get like 3/4 of the way through a book and then I'm like, okay, I get the point. I'm done here. Can this book end already? And then I'll like move the book aside. So it's like, I want to finish the book, but I don't want to finish the book either, because they're just saying the same thing over and over again. And I think it's more important to understand the lesson of the book, if it's like a self-help book or those types of books, like a learning book, like how can I become better type of book. I think it's more important to take the lesson that you learned, and once you learn it, take the lesson and then apply it to your life.
Yeah.
rather than sit around and continue reading the book, not doing what the book's telling you what to do.
Yeah. Normally, I mean, if you can get one good lesson from a book,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that's worth an 8-hour read or whatever. If you can, keep one thing that sticks with you for life, it's worth it tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, to spend $30 and get someone's whole life perspective, usually it's people that have done something crazy or cool that you're interested in. You can pay $30 for that. It's like maybe the best investment you could ever make in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because you can draw upon all that person's experiences and run that through your own program.
Yeah. So a book's honestly, in my opinion, one of the best investments you can make in yourself.
Yeah. I can see that. What else is a good investment?
Making yourself happy, doing things that you want to do. For me, it's like coming back from a Europe trip or something, and I just I'll take one of my parents' poodles and we'll just go in the mountains and stay in a tent for 2 nights and not have my phone, because there's no service in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. And I'm just out there for 2 days on my own with the dog and, seeing grizzly bears and just seeing a crazy adventure that most people would never see. And I can do that right out my backyard, and it kind of resets you, or it resets me in life, which is it's a pretty cool thing.
And what do you think the main thing gained from those experiences are? Is it a increased level of awareness of yourself, your situation, what you're doing? Is it mindfulness? Is it perspective? Is it you're taking a step back? You're hiking up way high on a mountain. You're taking the time to get away from any distractions that you have. Take it to yourself and just allow time for all the other things and distractions of life to kind of fizzle down, simmer down to a low boil, and then you can kind of get a perspective on it. What is it for you?
I'm a pretty big fan of how simple life used to be back in the old days when people, would do everything on their own. They'd make their own food. They'd, make everything on their own, and whatever they could do is what they had in life. And now it's a lot different than that. So, to go out in the wild gives you a completely different perspective, and it, makes you, appreciate what you have. 100 years ago, taking a plane ride around the world would be crazy. And now it's just like, it's whatever at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For a lot of people, it's like, damn, I got to get on a plane. And that's me too. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I got to go fly to Europe. And when you go out in the wild and you're dealing with mosquitoes is what you got to deal with out there. It's like, wow, there's sometimes the problems you're facing in regular life aren't that bad.
Do you ever think about like the Native Americans or the people before them that survived and persisted on what was around them?
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and I like learning about that. Honestly, it'd be pretty cool to go on like a 3-month or however long you can and just see how long you can make it on your own. I think maybe when I'm done racing, it'd be a cool thing to do and just see what it's actually like, and it could definitely give you a completely different outlook on life.
Have you ever watched that show Alone?
No.
Oh, you would love it.
What is it?
It's called Alone, and they drop these people off in these remote areas of Patagonia, Canada. What's the one up north? Alaska.
Actually, one of my teachers did this, and he won it.
What?
He won the 500 grand. My English teacher
Who?
in grade 8, Alan Tenta.
Really?
He won it.
No way.
Yeah. So I do know about that from him.
So he's a real savage.
He was a real savage. Yeah.
I envy those people.
It's really cool.
I envy it because it's so easy to watch the Alone and be like, oh yeah, I could do it. No, dude.
It's not that easy.
It's not
It'd be really hard.
It's about as easy as doing what you do on a motorcycle. That's about how easy that is.
It'd be a lot harder. Being out there, honestly, on your own and just not having anyone to talk to, alone would be hard. Just being by yourself for that long. That's something nowadays we don't do because we got our, if we get bored for 10 seconds, we open our phone
Boom.
and go on Instagram.
Boom.
We're oversaturated these days.
So oversaturated. Do you ever, upon your explorations, do you ever find any arrowheads or artifacts from old cultures or anything like that?
In the mountains when I go hiking, there's definitely like cabins from 100 years ago or so, which is
Stone.
in the middle of nowhere. There'll just
Really?
there'll be an old cabin, which is crazy because we're so far from the nearest civilization, and somehow they built a house out there from their hands, which is pretty cool. And then also I went to Italy one time and I was riding with Manny, and it was something to do with the World War, and someone had built a brick house in the middle of the mountains, and that was their safe house basically, which was pretty cool to see. Like literally near the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere, there was this safe house they built, by hand of brick.
And you could ride there on a dirt bike.
And we could get there. It was pretty isolated, but it was crazy to see.
Think how isolated that would have been back in the day when things were starting to pop off, and you got to think civilization has expanded a lot even since then. So it's even that,
Yeah,
it would have been even that much further away from whatever civilization there actually was back then.
Yeah, I'd say nowadays we're all pretty soft compared to what people had to go through back then.
So soft.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're past the point of worrying about what we're going to eat tonight.
Yeah.
You already know. I'm going to have steak, obviously, and white rice, obviously, because I can eat whatever I want because it's the good life. Now our version of surviving is going and making money somehow, and then buying groceries, and then buying a house. And it's like all money. You just have to and then it's funny how things have shifted from like, do what you have to do to survive, develop a skill to survive. You need to make arrowheads. You need to make a bow and arrow. You need to run around. You need to learn how to make a fire. You need to learn how to survive. And now that learning is, you need to learn how to make money. And, not only do you have to learn how to make money, but if you want the optimal life, you have to learn how to make money and do something you're passionate about, and helps other people, and it's like there's so many added layers to us just living a happy life, where it's almost like in some ways you dream about being able to go back like 3,000-4,000 years and being able to just join a tribe or start your own or something.
Yeah.
And being able to just wake up in the morning at somewhere between 6 o'clock and 6:40 in the morning. Grab your bow, grab all your shit, go out, hunt some small game, hunt some big game, bring it back, provide for the family, cook it, do whatever you got to do. I think that they only spent like 4 or 5 hours a day working. So they would work for a little bit, do some physical labor. They're healthy. They had good food. They're eating from the land, and then they would play games, tell stories, fuck around, find out. And now it's like not like that at all. We're so far away from that.
Yeah, what you just said sounds pretty fun. Sounds like a good time to me.
I'm in. Let's go. That's all. It's funny. That's all I want to do is like save a bit of money to be able to like go out in the wilderness for months at a time.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing, huh?
It is weird.
That's a weird thing.
That's weird. All right, well, I guess we can talk about dirt bikes again. So another thing that I wanted to ask you, we were talking about the tracks of Endurocross and how, to recap, you basically said that Endurocross tracks, the optimal track is like a decent mix between like technical rock sections and jumpable features.
Yeah, a good mixture of technical but still flow. It should be the fact where you shouldn't have arm pump and you're riding at a 50% level.
Yeah. And then what about hard enduro? Well, how have the hard enduro tracks developed, and what's it like when you go to Europe? What are those tracks like? And what do you think the optimal tracks are, track/format is for here in the United States?
So we're definitely pretty far behind the 8-ball when it comes to hard enduro. Europe has had it for so long, and it's just a completely different level over there. Where in US, it's been around for more than 10 years, but really it was just 2 or 3 races for most of that. And it wasn't until 2020 that we had half a championship. 2021, we had a real championship. But even in 2021, I won a lot of races that year just because they were not that hard. And I was just a bit faster than Cody on lots of the easier sections, like Donner. There was one in Michigan I won. It was just not that hard. So a lot of those ones just weren't that hard. And now in recent years, it's actually getting to be, we have tracks that are really hard. We have Grinding Stone, Battle of the Goats. We have Outliers in Canada. TKO is stepping it up. Silver Kings. So now we're getting close to a European level where, in my opinion, the track should be hard. If they're not hard, and if we're not doing things that wow people, then it's not even hard enduro. We might as well just call it standard enduro then, because we're just single track racing over obstacles that, you know, Stuart Baylor can do on a 450. So it should be things that people look at and be like, there's no way a dirt bike can get up that. And then all of a sudden, me or Cody comes around the corner and we go, bup, 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 and we're at the top, and they're just like, what? And then a video of that goes viral, and that's what really, that's why races like Erzberg and Romaniacs are so big, because they've been gnarly for that long, and it's just, you know, it's like buying a house, time in the market. You just got to have that time, and those races have been around for so long that it's just, it's crazy how big Erzberg is, especially. When I go to Erzberg, people that don't even know what a dirt bike is think it's the coolest thing they've ever seen, and I got like a bunch of people in my town that now tune in at 3 a.m. and watch me do that race because they think it's the coolest thing ever.
It is.
So I definitely like the tracks tough, because I think that's what makes hard enduro cool, and that's what ultimately grows it, because if it's not hard, it's just not that exciting, in my opinion.
And how do you think the right way to it? What do you think the right way is to bring that level of difficulty down to the regular person? Because from a promoter's standpoint, if you make the course super, super, super difficult, you're making the course for the 0.0001% of the riding population, which is you and Cody and Manny. And that only works for you guys, and that's where you get that wow factor from. So how do you take that desire for difficult tracks and bring it down to the regular person so that we can continue to grow the sport of hard enduro?
So I think, you know, races like Romaniacs have figured it out. They built the ultimate race for pros. They have a silver class, a bronze class, an iron class, an atom class. So they now have it that anyone can go there and do something that challenges them. And then we also have a race like Erzberg, where if you really are into hard enduro, and the goal at that race is just to finish. And if you finish, that's a massive achievement in life, which is not easy to do. Only 20 people on average finish a year. So, I mean, that's kind of out of reach for most people, I'd say. But honestly, just being there, being in the atmosphere, even if you're not racing, is a really cool thing. But also, the race next weekend, Grinding Stone, we're starting to figure out a new way to do it here in America, I think, where Saturday is kind of the day for amateurs. They get a pretty tough course for them, but they're going to be able to finish. And then on Sunday, they get another race that's going to be even harder, where even less will finish, but it's still, you know, for the most part, it's going to be rideable. And then after that, if they're still brave enough, they can come try our course. You know, you still got to qualify.
If they qualify,
yeah, you still got to qualify. But basically at that point, it's built for the best racers in the country, which then lots of those guys, you know, if there's 400 or 300, like 80, 90% of them don't even want to do it anyways. And they get they've done 2 races at this point, and now they get to watch us do stuff that shouldn't be possible on a dirt bike. So honestly, I think that's a really good way to do it. The amateurs get 2 races in a weekend, and if that's 3 hours a race, that's 6 hours. No one in their right mind wants to do more than that in a weekend anyways. And then they get a really sick show after that to watch us try and do things that, you know, someone can't even walk up. So
yeah, I
really like that model for here in America, just having a couple qualifiers that challenge the amateurs, and then having a really, really tough, main event for the best guys to compete on and, do battle on something that is kind of a spectacle to watch.
It seems like that's a pretty good happy medium.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you get the spectator aspect too,
Mm-hmm.
because then the people that raced on Saturday and Sunday morning can spectate Sunday afternoon and watch the big boys go do some wild things on a motorcycle. And I mean wild. And there's also something to be said for big one-loop races or two-loop races or multi-day races where it's a big adventure all the way out and around. But getting the spectators involved, I feel like brings the event to another level. And it's hard to get it all in. It's hard to fulfill all these things, and it's really challenging to make a course that works for everybody and make an event that works for everybody. But it seems like a multi-day format works because people want to show up, and if it's more than one day, then people if it's only one day and people show up to race, if you condense it into a one-day event, then you have a harder course for one day basically, and then people get less riding in and less spectating. So it's almost like the right recipe for hard enduro is to make a bigger overall event, make a multi-day event, make something that's fun for everybody that everybody can join in on and have fun. You can scale the courses down for Saturday and Sunday morning, and then all those people can watch Sunday, the big boys, and then they can go home without with their bike still rolling, still a rolling chassis without bringing their bike home in a milk crate.
Yeah. So I think honestly, Jim with Grinding Stone's he's got a pretty good thing going right now, and I'm interested to see how it works next weekend.
For sure. And what's it like in Europe? Because their races seem to be very popular, and they have a big. Generally speaking, they have a lot of spectators. I feel like guys with chainsaws hanging over the side of the track. It's always been like that over there in Europe with off-road racing. I went to Finland in 2011 to race the ISDE, and the course went through this guy's backyard, and he was out there drinking vodka and cheering us on and having a good time. And I'm like, dude, if that was in Arizona or California or something, people would be like so pissed. Like, you would never be able to get away with that. So, I mean, obviously there's a level of European enthusiasm for off-road motorsports that it's going to be hard to get automatically from the US, but how do they run their races there? How difficult are the courses? And what's it like being the triple champ, the triple US champ, and going over to Europe and trying to compete?
Yeah, so the courses there are, generally speaking, the level's super high in Europe. The courses are super narrow. They got races like Erzberg, Romaniacs, been around forever, and they keep stepping it up every year. So I go over there and I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. How hard it's hard to even put into words how hard some of those courses are. Like, it's just crazy that we even get through. I come to a section in Romaniac sometimes and I'm just like, there's no way you can get a bike up there. And I'm like, how did Manny get up there? There's no way. And then, you just do a little thinking. Yeah, you get your butt moving, and all of a sudden you're at the top, and then, no later you come to another one, and you're just like, wow. And that just happens for 7 hours.
Oh,
it's crazy. Romaniacs is so tough, but they do a really good job over there of doing different courses. Like, other than Erzberg, they only have one course, but Romaniacs, they have all the different courses, which is a massive project to set out, so many different GPS courses and still flag them. Hispania is kind of similar to Jim's race. There's a prologue, and then you have to qualify into the main event. So that's a pretty good format, I'd say. They have Serbia, which is pretty similar to Romaniacs, where it's 5 or 4 different courses, which is it's just tough for promoters to do that, I think. And you need a lot of land too, because you have to do 100K or so a day and do multi-days of that. So you need a lot of land and a lot of already made trails, I guess you could say. So that's, I think, tough. We don't really have anything like that in America yet, which is kind of a bummer, but maybe in the future we'll have something like that. And then you have a couple like Getson Rodeo. You have multi-lap races over there. So in Europe, they kind of have a bunch of different. They got rallies. They got from point A to point B. And then they also got the multi-lap races, which is kind of cool. They have a bunch of different formats to do the same
So all
discipline of
depends.
racing.
It depends on the land.
Yeah,
Depends on the land.
which is crazy because we have like America's huge, but for some reason they just in Europe they figure out how to use what land they have, which is not a lot because of how populated it is over there.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of private property on the East Coast. You know, that's a good starting point. And there's a lot of public land on the West Coast. And it's hard to get permits to go riding off trail.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of what hard enduro is. So that's difficult.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even know if in Romania they have permits because honestly, we start in one village here, and this is what it feels like from my perspective is you start in Phoenix and you finish in like Seattle. That's how long a day is there. You just go through so many mountains. You go through towns on main roads where there's speed limits. You go through people's backyards in the middle. On the top of a mountain, you're going through like 5 people's backyards. There's just people with goats and sheep out there. There's dogs coming and barking at you. It's crazy what you see in one day. It's hard to remember everything because you see so much. It's crazy how much you see in one day at a race like Serbia or Romaniacs, which is pretty cool and in my opinion maybe the ultimate race for like an average person because you get to see so much and you actually, if you're in bronze or silver, you can actually stop, enjoy, take a picture. You know, as there was some Canadians and they're all in bronze, they're all older and they're out for an 8-hour day to have a good time with their friends, see a bunch of cool things, see some cool single track, do some gnarly climbs. So, I mean, for the average person, it's really cool to do a race like that because you get so many hours on a bike and you're seeing so many cool things in a different place in the world. So, really, for the average person, it's the ultimate.
From that perspective, I could see how riding the gold class would be actually less enjoyable than riding the bronze or silver class because
you don't get to see much. You're just racing every foot of that track. It's cool doing. They have really sick trails over there. The gold sections are super sick, but you don't just get to take it in like a bronze guy would. Because you're just rushing through everything and you're in more pain, I guess, suffering a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, dude, I think we're pretty far in. We could talk about dirt bikes, hard enduro, life, ancestral living, arrowheads, dirt bikes, and land and hard enduro till the cows come home. So maybe we should start to wrap things up. What do you think? You want to?
Sounds good.
Thank you for coming on here. Can you share with everybody your social handles and where they can buy your book? This guy's got a children's book that everybody needs.
Yeah, it's my book's on Amazon, Hard Enduro Heroes, and my Instagram, Trystan Hart 84. Pretty simple. Yeah, so hit me up. Send me pictures of your kids reading my book. I like seeing that stuff. It fires me up, and hopefully I'll get you guys another book here soon.
Rock on. Well, listen, Trystan, it's been a pleasure to race with you over the years and to see you progress and blossom into the robot that you are. It's been incredible to watch. You're a very unique and special individual, and if I could give you any advice at all, it'd just be stay on the path that you're on. Don't listen to anything that anybody says. It just keep hammering. You're the fucking man. Thanks for coming on, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks.
You. Enjoy, boys. Ciao.